Good morning to everyone on the line. Thank you for joining us this morning for our webinar on how minority businesses can survive and thrive in this current economy and in the midst of a pandemic. We have an exciting program for you this morning. We'll get into that in a moment, but first, Golden Gate University is very dedicated to small business and entrepreneurs, and I want to welcome our president, David Fike, who wants to give you some opening remarks. So, David.
Great, thanks, Robert. Yeah, I'm really honored to have been asked to be able to make a few remarks and welcome and of appreciation at the outset of this very important panel. It's an extraordinarily important time for this type of panel. It's so helpful and needed at any time to provide support to our small business community, particularly our minority business community. And it's especially true as we work through and navigate the impact of this public health crisis, a crisis which, as we are all undoubtedly aware, is impacting communities of color more profoundly and adversely. So I think it's really something that brings a lot of pride to us here at GGU to be able to host this this panel, and it's also something that is very much a part of who GGU is and who GGU has always been. Many of you may not know that GGU started as a part-time law school in the early 1900s, providing inroads to a society-shaping professional field of law that was typically reserved for the aristocratic or the well-to-do individuals who could afford to dedicate years to full-time study. Well, not surprisingly, coming from those kinds of roots, the hallmark of GGU's century-old evolution of education in our offerings in a variety of fields, whether it's in law or accounting or tax or insurance or transportation or marketing or finance or telecommunications, you name it. We've always been focused on serving working adults from diverse communities with a particular emphasis always on accessibility, affordability, creating pathways for career advancement and social mobility. So not surprisingly, with that groundbreaking access that we as an institution have always been very proud of, it's not surprising that we have been in the forefront of serving minority communities and communities that are traditionally underserved in higher education. Our law school had the first African-American dean of an ABA accredited school in California. We were the school that had only the second female dean of an ABA accredited ABA law school in the entire country. And today, a majority of our students in both the law school and the business school are students of color, and we have probably one of the most diverse student bodies of an ABA accredited law school in the country. So it's only natural, I think, that we would be hosting a panel like this, and I just wanted to acknowledge and thank all of you for participating, and especially give special thanks to those that have been so much a part of making this possible. Sue-Ann Hirschberg, Shuet Johannes, Damon Copeland, Dean Amy McClellan, and of course, Robert Schaffner for your leadership on this. I'll hand it back to you, Robert. Thank you for asking me to make a few remarks at the beginning.
David, thank you for joining us today and those opening remarks, which really characterized Golden Gate University and our deep commitment to minority communities here in the Bay Area, and particularly to the small business community with our business school. Let me just take a moment to talk a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves. I have been at Golden Gate University for a few years. I run the MBA programs here, and we have several regular MBA and executive MBA, and then some custom MBA programs that really give you valuable skills that can enhance your career and help you grow. I secondly wear a hat of running our entrepreneurship programs here at Golden Gate, and we have a program for existing businesses that are trying to pivot and think about how they move ahead during this times that we're in. Have a beginning entrepreneurship program. We've been running that program for several years and have several graduates that's open to the community. We're going to be running a program for women business owners, and that will also be taking place. And prior to that, I was a banker. So I spent many years in financial institutions and running small business banking teams, so I'm familiar with what small businesses need and how businesses get started. I also ran a small business development center for San Mateo County, so I've always had an interest in small business and wanting to see it, small businesses really survive and really thrive. And so part of that is how we came up with this idea at this particular time about this panel that we're doing. So I'm going to stop there, and you'll learn more about me as we go along, and have our panelists introduce themselves. And I'd like to start off with the Honorable Fiona Ma. I just want to give a shout out to her. She really jumped on how to help small business early on during this pandemic, as early as April, and put up just a fantastic website with all sorts of resources for small businesses. So Fiona, thank you for that. And I'll turn the floor over to you.
Great, thank you, Robert, and thank you, David. I am a proud Golden Gate alum myself, graduated in the taxation, master's in taxation program when I was working for Ernst & Young way back when, so I'm dating myself, but I had a great educational experience due to all of the amazing instructors who are actually working in the field. So again, I highly recommend Golden Gate, and I know many of my friends, many are women and minority people of color who have also graduated from different programs, including my younger brother as well. So thank you for hosting this, and it's been a very interesting experience. Like Robert, I also had a small business which propelled me into this life of public service, representing a lot of small business owners, understanding that it's very difficult to run a small business, yet we are the backbone of the economy, yet not able to lobby effectively for ourselves because we're just so busy just trying to keep our doors open. So that's how I started. I became the president of the Asian Business Association back when I was 28 years old, and understood firsthand that number one, we need to have people that look like us at the table. Otherwise, the policies are going to be very, very different and perhaps harmful to our communities. Number two, there were not a lot of elected officials that were women and Asians back then. And so that also got me interested in being more of a representative for our communities. And since then, this is my fourth elected position, and I always am very cognizant and focused on small businesses. So like Robert said, at the onset of the pandemic, my external affairs team, which usually does outreach, in-person seminars, pivoted to these virtual seminars, but also creating these resource guides. So if you go on my website, www.treasure.ca.gov, you will see two buttons. One is the COVID-19 official state website. So we encourage folks to log on to that for the latest and greatest. And then the second button is my COVID-19 resource guides, which have updated real-time resources for small businesses, for seniors, nonprofits, individuals, tax relief, and also food access. So we encourage you to go there because a lot of times you apply and you're waiting and you didn't even know that the fund was depleted. So again, you know, I think Noah's going to be updating my chat to include all of the information that I will be citing here today. But again, small businesses have had a tough time. Many are not able to open, therefore are never going to open. And those that are open, I know are having a really, really difficult time. So I thank Golden Gate University for putting on this webinar today, and we hope that it will be helpful to many of you.
Thank you, Fiona. Next up, like Julie Close, who's the Director, Northern California Director of the United States Small Business Administration, to speak.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you to you and the whole GGU team for this forum today. And I'm really happy to share some information a little bit later. But first, just a quick introduction. As Robert said, I'm Julie Klaus, the District Director for SBA's San Francisco area office. So SBA is the federal agency that is there to help start, build, grow, and help businesses recover from natural disasters. So my team and I are based in San Francisco, but we actually cover a 14-county area from Santa Cruz all the way up to the Oregon border. And everything that we do can really be put into 4 big buckets, whether it's helping businesses with financial assistance, everything from microfinance up to venture capital, whether it's helping businesses break into government contracting and get their piece of the pie, so to speak, of those federal contracts, helping businesses through free business advising, which I think is probably the most invaluable thing we do, through direct and through our partners. And then also helping businesses recover from disasters, which we'll also talk a little bit more later. So I'm going to put my contact information in the chat, and I look forward to coming back and telling you a little bit more about what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Angel Cardoz, Director of San Francisco Small Business Loan Programs.
Hey, good morning, Robert, and good morning, everyone. As Robert mentioned, my name is Angel Cardoz, and I serve as Interim Director for the San Francisco Small Business Development Center. For those of you who are not familiar with the SBDC, we are a part of a national program of approximately 1,000 centers across the nation. We are funded in part by the SBA to help provide one-on-one consulting and business training. Our aim is to help businesses start and expand businesses, create jobs, retain jobs, and under this environment to help businesses survive. Again, our primary purpose is to, or our primary services are business consulting, one-on-one business consulting, and we also offer training and webinars for businesses. As of late, we did a lot around PPP and idle lending and understanding the local programs and grant programs. So again, our purpose is to help businesses start and expand and in this environment survive. So I'm looking forward. Thank you, Robert and GGU for inviting me here today. I'm looking forward to sharing more details regarding the services that we offer.
Angel, thank you. And as a fellow colleague and a fellow SBDC director, just a shout out for everyone on the line here. Connect with your local SBDC. A couple of years ago, SBDCs provided access to capital for small businesses of over $750 million in the state of California. So the better part of $1 billion is available through, they'll help you get access to those funds, and I know money is needed for small businesses. Jeff Belisario, who is with the Bay Area Economic Institute. You're up next.
All right, thanks, Robert. My name is Jeff Belisario. I'm the Executive Director of the Bay Area Council Economic Institute. We're actually a small business ourselves. We're a nonprofit. We're a group of 6. I like to call it 6 nerds. We're a research group. We do a lot of tracking of the local economy here in the 9-county Bay Area region. So I can bring a lot of data to the conversation. We're tracking big businesses and small businesses and trying to get a handle on some of the economic pain, but also the speed of the economic recovery with a particular focus on equity issues. I would also say that I also sit on the City of Oakland's Economic Recovery Council. We've done some work also with the City of San Jose and their Economic Recovery Council. So I can bring a regional perspective to the conversation as well. And lastly, we're part of the Bay Area Council. So some of you here today may be aware the Bay Area Council is a business advocacy organization for the 9-county Bay Area. We do have about 350 business members. Many of them are medium and large businesses, but again, we kind of take that pulse of the economy for the region. So happy to share some insights with the group today. And thank you again for having me.
Jeff, thank you. And finally, our last panelist for today, certainly not least, is John Kavatech from the National Federation of Independent Businesses.
Oh, greetings, Robert, and everybody. Hello, hope you're all doing well. And it's great to be here, and thank you. Thank you so much. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Awesome. And thank you, Sue Ann, President Fike, Golden Gate University. A lot of respect for all of you. I love the panel that I have the privilege of being able to serve with. I'm a big Fiona Ma fan, big SBA fan, SBDC fan, and Golden Gate University fan. So this is a great group, incredible rich resources for people to be able to access, in particular minority businesses and those who are the smallest of small businesses. You know, nearly 4 million small businesses around the state. We make up 99.2% of all the businesses in the state and employ most Californians. So this is an important discussion. NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business, of which I serve as the California State Director, we represent about 15,000 small and independent businesses here in California, about 300,000 nationwide. We're actually the nation's and the state's largest and leading small business advocacy group. The cool part of it is we're a California product. Started in the Burlingame area about 77 years ago by a guy who was a member of a larger business organization, and he really felt like we need to have a group that's actually speaking for the small, independent mom and pops. We're very proud to do that. We provide a number of great services for our members all these many years, but especially during this terrible crisis, including webinars, and we'll talk more about that, materials, information, links to great resources like Treasurer Ma offers and the Governor's Office, GoBiz, and others, but in SBA, but also many other webinars on labor law, other great things to help people. But we also make sure that we're advocating for small businesses at the state and federal level under the Capitol domes, in those regulatory meetings and others. And that's really important because we did a survey this past week. We do regular surveys of our members, especially now. Just came out yesterday showing that we found that 1 in 5 of our responding members, small business owners, said that they do not expect their businesses to be open within 6 months if the economic conditions continue to worsen. So everything that we are doing to make sure that small businesses get the attention and really get the help as they create jobs is so critical. And so we make sure that we're gonna, that they're getting the PPP loans, they're getting advocacy on that front, that they're getting the help, and most importantly, that our policymakers, like Fiona Ma really does, but our policymakers really understand the economics of small business. We're lucky to have people like Fiona there who really gets it. She's been a small business owner. Many of them haven't, so we make sure that we're advocating. But this is going to be a great discussion. Most importantly, great resources and tools, things that we're doing, that the others are doing, and making sure that small businesses are getting help today. They need it. They're desperate. And like I said, many of them and their employees won't be around in 6 months unless we can help them. So what you're doing, Robert, Sue Ann, President Fike, this is awesome. And this kind of stuff, we look forward to getting out to many, many more. So thank you, and looking forward to a great discussion.
John, thank you very much, and thank all the panelists. I'm looking forward to this discussion. And so let me just frame a little bit of why we chose our title and why we're focused on minority business. The pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on minority businesses in the United States. Coming into April, African-American businesses were especially hit hard with 41% drop in those businesses. That 41% equates to about 820,000 businesses. Hispanic business owners experienced a drop of 32%, and that equated to about 1,400,000 businesses that are no longer in existence. Asian businesses similarly hit a 26% drop, which equated to 520,000. And then women business owners were also hit with a 25% drop, which equated to 2,900,000. And so overall, from March until April, May, the pandemic took away 5.5 million businesses in the United States. So minority businesses were especially hit hard. And then you have on top of that, we had the PPP programs that were put in place by the federal government, which were great programs and great results. A lot of needed capital put into the market. But in that first round, minority businesses didn't participate as much. And so the reports lately say that that Black businesses in particular maybe got about 5% of the funds that were available there. So there's some things that were impacting that, just traditional access to capital, traditionally how lenders may look at businesses, how Black businesses, minority businesses bank. That has an impact in terms of they have a main bank relationship, what their credit standing is, all sorts of different things that may have impacted them to be able to take advantage of some of the programs that are there. So today we really want to talk about, all right, that's history, but how do businesses survive and thrive right now? How are they going to pivot to a new model? How are they going to get their business up and running again? How are we going to counteract some of the things that John just talked about in terms of the future? And that's what we'll be doing from a national level, down to a state level, down to a local level. So we really get a full view of what's available. I just saw a recent survey, so I will give you some information. This was August is National Black Business Month in the United States. So 75% of Black businesses since June, post George Floyd, have seen an increase in their business. So that's good. Black business owners are very, very proud to be in business as an owner. But they have some headwinds, some challenges. 76% revealed that the COVID-19 has negatively impacted their business, and I just reported that. They feel that 80% feel that they have challenges because of their race as they try to get their business off the ground or have their business continue ahead. And then 59% unfortunately said they've been the victim of some race, some bias or racism as they've run their business. So those are all challenges and headwinds that we can begin to make impact on, hopefully through events like this, so that we get needed resources to these minority businesses. I would just tell everybody on the line today, if you have a question, please, you can put your question in the chat. We will have a Q&A session at the end, towards the end of this session. So we want to try to answer as many questions as possible. And to get started, I am going to start with Julie from the SBA and the national level and have you talk about what programs you have available for minority businesses and businesses in general.
Sure, thank you. So I was going to give a quick update and then hopefully talk a little bit about the future. So as of today, the programs that we have available for as far as COVID-19 related assistance in the financing arena, really two major programs are still open and available. One is an Sba Debt Relief program. This has not gotten a lot of attention, so I do always like to highlight it really quickly. If you have existing Sba debt, whether that's a 504 loan or a micro loan or anything in between, SBA is paying 6 months of the interest in principal on those loans. So if you have existing SBA debt and you don't know if you are enrolled, please talk to your lender to make sure they enroll you in this program. Secondly, if you are acquiring new debt between now and September 27th, so only about a month away, we will also similarly pay 6 months of interest in principal on that debt. So that's one program that is still open for a very limited time now, basically 1 more month. But the other loan or financial assistance program that is still open is also the EIDL program, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. That program is still taking applications through our online portal. and those are being processed as quickly as possible. We have received to date over 14 million applications in this program, so obviously high demand and high need for those programs. The PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program, I think everyone is aware that it did sunset. We are still waiting to see what kind of direction Congress may take, whether they reauthorize this program, whether it's PPP 2.0, or what's going to happen. We're all kind of waiting. With that said, the program, a lot of businesses are looking at the forgiveness phase. So that is if you are one of the early applicants of PPP and you maybe have exhausted all the funds, you may want to be looking at the forgiveness phase, and there's lots of information, more information is coming out daily about the forgiveness portion, and lots of FAQs and new information. So do encourage businesses to take a look at the website to make sure they're staying up to date with the latest information. I also, as kind of a sidebar, because not only are we dealing with COVID effects here, but obviously the wildfires are having a tremendous impact on, especially on Bay Area businesses. And as of Saturday, so that was like the 22nd, a disaster declaration was made for the wildfires. So it is just opened, and we do have a disaster declaration for businesses for physical damage. If you are in Lake County, Yolo, Napa, Sonoma, Solano, San Mateo, Santa Cruz, and Monterey. For physical damage in those counties, the program is open. Economic injury is available to small businesses, and that is also open, and that is for the businesses in those named counties, plus the contiguous counties. So currently we have the physical disaster loan, which is there to help repair or replace any uninsured damaged property for businesses, large and small, nonprofits, homeowners, renters, landlords, pretty much everybody that is affected by any physical damage or loss. And then the economic injury loan program is only available to small businesses and nonprofits to help them with the economic injury they may sustain because of the wildfires. All that information is also available on our website. We do have a virtual disaster center set up to help answer questions, and the application process is available online as well. I think one of the things we're looking at now, while we wait for Congress to approve the next round of stimulus and funding packages, also trying to have conversation with businesses about how we can continue to support them. You're going to hear from Angel here, one of our great resource partners, the Small Business Development Center. I think our business advisors, whether it's SBDC, SCORE, Women Business Centers, and our Veteran Business Outreach Center here in Northern California can really play a key role in helping businesses in this time. And I don't want to steal Angel's thunder, but it is a resource I definitely encourage people to take advantage of, especially if you just want to have someone, an advisor, to sit with and figure out what your new strategy is going to be. Obviously, COVID is going to be with us for quite a bit of time. So what do you need to do to re-strategize, to rethink, to find a new revenue stream? That said, above and beyond the financing, SBA does have additional resources there to help you. So perhaps you've maybe thought about government contracting, federal government contracting, and now is the time maybe to explore that a little bit further. I know state and local budgets tend to be really tight right now, but the federal government is still spending, and I think will so for the next year or two at least. So that may be a potential revenue stream for you. The other thing to consider in leveraging a lot of the federal programs is exporting. If that's something that you've thought about, finding a new market, finding a new customer base, maybe for your existing products and services, the federal government, SBA, plus our sister agencies have a lot of resources to help you with that process. So the thing is, I know the financing programs were what came out front and were very needed. I'm sure many people now need a second round of funding because the first round went so fast, and the PPP especially was only meant to cover about 8 weeks of your payroll. So in addition to the financing packages, we also encourage businesses to think about the other ways that SBA can support your business, and we invite you to have those conversations with us and with our resource partners. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for that information. And the one thing about SBA is there's a ton of resources, as Julie just said. She mentioned some programs, and we'll talk about those a little bit later, but really visit that website. There's a lot of information about how to get capital for your business. There's information resources, templates for business plans, just a ton of things that are dedicated to helping small businesses thrive and survive. So that's at our national level. I'd like to take and move our conversation from national down to state, what's going on in the state of California. And I'd like to have Fiona speak a little bit about what's going on in California right now to assist small businesses.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. I also do want to just touch on a couple of things that you mentioned earlier, right? Why is it more difficult for minority and women small businesses to survive or thrive? And a lot of it has to do with access to capital, which I will talk about a little bit, what my office is doing to help those type of businesses. But it also starts, number one, sometimes the leadership, right? Who is, the head of a company? Head of a bank, who is sitting on the boards of directors, right? Making sure that there is equity in terms of lending and access to banking and capital. So I have also been very active in trying to get more women on corporate boards. SB 826, Hannah Beth Jackson's bill was passed in 2018, which requires a certain number of women to sit on companies that are headquartered here in the state of California. We had a recent webinar and 600 women signed up, trying to figure out what that magic formula is to get on one of these corporate boards. Secondly, there is a bill right now moving through the legislature. I'm going to ask Noah to put it up there. It is a similar bill to SB 826, except it requires a certain number of minorities who are required to sit on these corporate boards as well. So policy sometimes does drive a lot of what happens here in the state of California. I've also pivoted to trying to help businesses who are able to stay in business to readjust. And so I partnered with Brain Zooming. Today at 1 o'clock, we will have our third Brain Zooming event that is really trying to help businesses pivot in this new normal. So I hope people will sign up, and I always post all of my webinars and seminars on my Twitter account at Fiona Ma. So you can always follow the different programs that are being are out there for businesses as they are thinking about how to pivot during this time. But in my divisions, I am the state banker, so I have three main divisions. I have a cash management division, so every revenue, tax fee, fine, interest, penalty comes into our state bank, about $2.6 trillion every year. Secondly, I have an investments division, so I have a little like a trading desk where about 8 traders invest every day the money that is idle for the state of California, but also we invest for about 2,000 different local municipalities and special districts. And then third is my public finance division, where we issue bonds. Last year, we issued about 14 different bonds, infrastructure bonds, and any of the bonds that are passed by the state of California through the initiative process. And even during this COVID-19 time, we have been issuing bonds. And just to let folks know, California bonds are still very popular. We have been oversubscribed, and we have been getting great rates. So kudos to everyone here in California, our great Golden State. But a couple things that we've been doing deliberately, and I always say we need to be deliberate if we are going to support women and minority small businesses, and even those that are veteran owned and disabled businesses. Those also need help. So in our investments division, like I said, we have about $103 billion portfolio. We use a number of minority-owned firms, African-American firms, including Blaylock, Castle Oak Securities, Loop Capital Markets, and Siebert Williams Shank and Company. And so they are part of our call. Every day we're calling them and making sure that we are using them as our broker dealers. And then a time deposit program. We also invest in local headquartered bank here in California, so community banks and credit unions. We invest in these banks so that they can loan out to the community. So one Hispanic-owned bank, Commercial Bank of California, is one of our time deposit banks. And we have a number of API-owned banks here. I've got about 20 banks that we put money in. But interestingly, I don't have any African-American banks. So again, as we talk about what some of the difficulties are, is access to capital, right? So if Robert or any of you, are active and know different minority-owned banks, please let me know, and we will be in touch, and hopefully we'll be able to deposit some money into their bank. And then our general obligation pool, our bond underwriting pool. This time, coming up in September 2nd, we have elevated Ramirez and Company, a Hispanic-owned firm, to be one of 2 joint senior underwriters. And this is a big deal because we are issuing a $2.4 billion bond. We are the largest state that issues the largest amounts of bonds, and to have Ramirez up there in the top right, I think is a milestone to the banks. And then we have another bond that we are issuing where we are going to be also using Black-owned firms, Loop, Siebert, as well as one more firm, and I will get that to you. But again, it has to be deliberate, right? If we continue with the status quo, our society as it is, some of us don't get those opportunities without pulling up and lifting up some of these smaller firms to make sure that they are getting the opportunities. So those are some of the things that I'm doing here in my office.
Fiona, thank you. Thank you for your words and what's going on at the state level. And I love that last line there. We have to be deliberate. We have to say, how do we change what we've always been doing? Because sometimes that gives us blinders and we just think, oh, that's work, so we'll just do that again. But it may be excluding different groups of people that really need to figure out how do they play in the pool, if you will. Let's see, let's go from there to Angel. I'm going to have you present what's going on at the local level. You talked a little bit about SBDCs. There's 1,000 of them across the United States. So obviously they're connected to local communities. And then a little bit about San Francisco has really been doing some very innovative things here late in trying to really assist small businesses. So Angel, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you so much, Robert. Yeah, one thing that I didn't mention earlier. So I am wearing multiple hats. So in addition to serving as interim director of the Small Business Development Center, I'm also the director of small business and financing programs for the Office of Economic and Workforce Development in the city and county of San Francisco. But before I jump into some of the programs that are being developed within OEWD, Robert, I appreciate how you framed the discussion. Specifically around, how do we counteract these challenges? And, one thing that comes to mind, in addition to the challenges with access to capital, is not knowing what you don't know. So, time and time again, the city just put a survey last year. And one of the questions in the survey was, are you aware of the services available to you? Whether that is the lending programs, whether that is the technical assistance, whether that is the network opportunities, what have you. And time again, and what we received from that survey was specifically no. We didn't know these services were available. And this is not new to us, especially for those of us who have been around in technical assistance for some time. Very often we're that secret. Businesses don't know that these services are available to them. So I just want to say that I appreciate you and Golden Gate University for putting these type of events together, because I think this is a step in that direction, helping businesses know, hey, there are services. and you should be tapping into them. And then not only here, but following up again and saying, hey, here, there's services. We all know that old marketing adage, tell them and then tell them again and then tell them again. I think that's one of the things that we want to consider as not only government agencies, but also as technical assistance providers to take proactive steps to not only make these services available, but to be out in the community, be out in these events, talk to businesses, talk to partners, to let them know, hey, these services are available. There was a question that came up earlier in the chat box, something I saw, is like, hey, there's so much here. Is this being recorded so I can access this later? And I think that's absolutely right. I think it can be even overwhelming, even for us who are in the field, to fully understand and appreciate the extent of all of these, excellent, innovative programs that are being deployed. So I think one key thing is to have someone help you navigate that process. And I think that's one of the things that the SBDC can provide. As I mentioned earlier, we are a part of a network of SBDCs across the nation. So even if you're not, in San Francisco, if you're in Marin and, in Alameda County and San Mateo, Robert, I think you want to tap into these resources because you want to think to these consultants, these organizations to guide you through that process. So I think that's one key thing. One way that we can counteract these challenges is to get engaged, start working with these organizations. And to Julie's point earlier, it doesn't have to be only the SBDC, or it can be someone, it can be a different organization. It can be the Women's Business Center. It can be SCORE. It can be Renaissance. It can be Mission Economic Development Agency. It can be, there's so many organizations. The key is, I don't think there's a wrong door, to be totally honest. It's just get engaged. And I'll tell you, all of these technical assistance providers, their end goal is to help small businesses. So if they can help you, they will refer you to someone that can. So how do we counteract these challenges? We counteract them by getting engaged, by understanding what resources are available, and by taking advantage of those resources. That ties into the access to capital question as well. Too often, or sometimes our small businesses go to, a specific bank and they get turned down. At that point, they think, okay, well, that's the only option. Well, there are other options. There are the CDFIs, for example, whose primary purpose is to support, businesses that are disadvantaged, be it because of low income, minority-owned, women-owned, what have you. But their focus is to support these small businesses. So, to Fiona's point earlier, yes, access to capital has been a challenge, and it has been even more so a challenge in the last several months, given the impact COVID has had on cash flow. And we do want to think to new innovative programs to help address these issues. But ultimately, the only way that it can really make an impact is if businesses are taking advantage of it. In 2019, SBDC supported 58% of the businesses that we supported were minority-owned. A little bit more than half were women-owned. We helped businesses access more than $30 million in capital. That's only San Francisco-based businesses. Early on in COVID, we were the front runners in helping understand the PPP process, the EIDL process, what the implications were, and sharing this information with our clients. And we're continuing to innovate and understand, every day, every week, there are new programs being developed. And it's hard to stay abreast of all of these things that are being deployed. So I would urge businesses to get in contact with their SBDC or their WBC or any technical assistance provider. There is no wrong door. Ultimately, our ultimate goal is to help you succeed, is to pair you with that right advisor that can help guide you through that, through that financing, can help you access these government contracts, that can help you understand what the implications are of a PPP or an EIDL loan is, that can help you be COVID compliant even based on your specific industry. And finally, strategically, what can you do to pivot, innovate, and adapt to the new environment? Be it through e-commerce, be it through curbside selling, there are ways to adapt to this new environment, and that's why the SBDC is here. That's why consultants are here, is to help you, expand or understand what resources and opportunities exist for you. So.
Thank you, Angel. Next up, I'm going to have John talk from the National Federation of Independent Businesses. And you guys got started right in the midst of World War II. And you've been a strong voice for small businesses and independent business owners since then. So as that advocacy organization, what are you doing right now to assist small businesses?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. And there is an irony to that, I think, having started in around the time of World War II, because I think the sad irony, I think, right now is I feel like we're all probably feeling like we're fighting an invisible enemy here with the pandemic. But we're going to fight it and get through it. And I'm so inspired by so many small businesses out there, many of you out there who are not giving up. And what you're doing, Robert and Sue-Ann and Golden Gate, in terms of making sure people know not to give up, especially minority and ethnic owned businesses and the smallest businesses during this time. But I'll tell you, some of the things that we're doing, I think, are kind of at the state and federal level. There's kind of probably threefold if I'm thinking about it. As I mentioned, one of the biggest things that concerned us this week was that study that found that if things really don't improve in the next 6 months, 1 in 5 of at least our small business members are going to be forced to close their doors. But we do see some, signs of encouragement. And I think, again, these people who are converting their businesses from like distilleries to, from making their distilleries of bourbon to hand sanitizers, and people who are giving back to people in the fires, restaurants who are doing that. But I'll tell you, one of the things that it's probably about threefold that I want to make sure, people know. First of all, the first thing that we're finding is, a couple things that we're doing and making sure we do for small business owners, not just in our organization, but across the country. I think the first thing is making sure that people really are getting the help they need to get out of the hole they're in and get back on Main Street and open their doors again. I think and that in particular, I think we're finding that the PPP loans and the emergency economic, disaster loans are ones that people have taken advantage of. We found that 84% of our members and small business owners have already used up all of their first round of the PPP loans, and another 44% are actually saying they want to reapply or apply for the first time. So, we're trying to do everything we can to make sure people know how to do that. We have been conducting webinars. We're going to be doing a whole new series of webcasts for California specific members very soon, including representatives of independent banks. One of the things I think minority and ethnic business owners can do is, I certainly find the bank that's your size and your style. But what we're hearing more from our smallest and ethnic owned business owners is they really love that independent bank, that independent institution in their neighborhood. They are usually more boutique, more focused. And so those have been great resources. So the PPP loans, one of the things I'll mention that Nfib did in the state capitol is when the Congress, the bipartisan Congress, and even the president, were moving forward with the original PPP loans, we were making sure that small businesses were getting their fair share on that. We obviously saw a lot of that going to bigger companies, even the Los Angeles Lakers. Sorry if I'm offending any Lakers fans. And that just wasn't right, because I think the smallest businesses needed to get it. So Nfib was loud. We made it very clear. Our members got on the phone. That's where people can get involved with us at nfib.com. Is we got a lot of people involved, picking up the phone, calling their members of Congress saying, hey, that's not fair. That money should be going to us on Main Street. A lot of them were minority and ethnic owned businesses. And a lot of them are the ones who suffer these things when we see a distribution that's gone awry. So the PPP and just helping to get people out of the holes that they're in is critical. We've been, like I said before, we're steering people to Treasurer Ma's website, the GoBiz website. I think helping people to try and find job opportunities. The governor has this Onward California. It's onwardca.org that's helping people to find jobs and helping employers to find people to hire. But most importantly, we're wanting to make sure, and we're fighting in Congress and here at the state level to make sure small businesses are getting the attention that they need and that it's going where it should. I know the governor also has had some money allocated to those small businesses, the smallest ethnic and minority and small businesses who fall through the cracks when it comes to lending. So we're just making sure we're doing that, but it's not just connecting people with the resources, it's fighting for the right policies to get small businesses the help they need. The second thing we're doing, Robert and everybody, is we're making sure, like I said, policymakers really understand the economics of their policy. We are, you know, we don't begrudge the ability to make sure employees are getting the help they need, such as employee leave programs and workers' comp and other things like that. But we have to make sure our policymakers understand the policy behind it, the economics, that most small businesses don't have money in the till. So to force a very costly new program on a small business owner, they just can't go to the back of their business and pluck, you know, Benjamins off their tree. So we got to make sure a policy comports that's good for the employee is also one that's not going to break the bank of the mom and pop. And the mom and pops really are doing everything they can. We hear more and more to keep their extended families on payroll. It's the last expense they want to have to cut. But a lot of these policies are very, very unintended consequences, but they're actually very onerous. And so the other thing we're doing here in California is making sure, like on workers' comp, paid family leave, sick leave, that people are understanding the economics and that we're not breaking small businesses' backs. And also the other issue is unemployment insurance. Again, a very well-intentioned program, and we're glad to see that there's some money going out there to people who need it. But it's what we found in a recent study is that 32% of our members in this last study we did this week have said that it's the additional money going out from the UI program has actually made it very difficult for them to hire or rehire people because of the perverse incentive of it. Well-intentioned program with UI, but it should not be a forever program. And unfortunately, a lot of people are saying, I don't need to go back to work. I'm making more than I did when I was at work. So a lot of employers are they're struggling to try and make sure they can get people on payroll. And then the third part of it is liability. This is a real interesting issue, and I'll wrap up here because I know you have other speakers, but we have found that ethnic and minority businesses are often the usual target of frivolous lawsuits. We've seen this with ADA, Americans with Disability Act, again, a well-intentioned program back in the early 2010s. But we found Democrats and Republicans coming together. I know Treasurer Ma, when she was in the legislature, has been an advocate for responsible ADA reform, and we got some. But to create a cottage industry for these lawyers to prey on small businesses is a big issue right now. And what we found in this most recent study, 55% of small businesses are claiming that they're really worried about the threat of legal action, frivolous lawsuits against them because of these ever-changing laws at every level. So NFIB has been in the state capitol fighting for, we've been working with the governor's office and with folks on both sides of the aisle to get at least create some sort of a safe harbor for small businesses who are really worried about the threat. And it will happen if we don't fix it. A number of plaintiffs' attorneys shaking down small businesses just because they don't, like somebody said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. And again, make no mistake, many plaintiffs' attorneys will prey on those small businesses. And what we saw with ADA is a lot of that was Latino, Asian nail salons and businesses, Latino-owned businesses because of the language barrier. So we're making sure that we're fighting in the capitals. We're making sure that we're getting that PPP money going. Most importantly, we're making sure that we're getting information out to people so they know what they need to know. And many of them, there's stuff moving so fast, it's very easy for either governments to have unintended consequences like we saw with the early PPP distribution, or we've seen worse things such as some of these things that are moving so fast that it's opening up the door for attorneys to shake them down, and nobody wants that because that doesn't help any of our services if small businesses can't fund them. So we're fighting hard, and I appreciate the opportunity, and just doing these kinds of things, Robert and Sue Ann, are just the best thing, and I can't tell you how important it is. People are getting to know what they need to know. But again, our website's nfib.com. The bigger voice we have, the more people we can make sure are being heard, and the policymakers like Fiona and others in the Capitol are understanding the economics of it. So thank you.
John, thank you for your remarks, and thank you for being a strong voice for small businesses. I'm sure many can know about your organization and some of the things you're doing, but that advocacy work is extremely important.
Thank you.
you are with the Bay Area Economic Institute, and perhaps many of our attendees today are from the Bay Area. And what's going on with our economy here? How can we help small businesses move ahead and maybe reverse that trend that John sees of 1 in 6 in the next 6 months going out of business?
Thanks, Robert. I mentioned I'm a data nerd, so let me give you just a couple more numbers that match some of John's numbers. So this is from an August survey. This is actually nationwide, but it definitely applies here in the Bay Area as well. 27% of small businesses say they need more capital in the next 6 months to survive. Small businesses are firing more than hiring today. 11% of them are losing employment, 7% gaining. And then only 9% of small businesses in the US actually saw a revenue increase in early August. So we have this scenario where the stock market is going back up through the roof again. We have unemployment's been coming down over the last couple of months. We've seen this trend toward remote work where a lot of the large tech companies are doing exceptionally well. But it's that small business community that is still hurting today. And I think telling that story, as many people on this call already have, is extraordinarily important. I'd say within that, as we look at the data, and I think for the small business owners on the call and those that just go walk around their neighborhood, you know that it's retail, it's restaurants, it's those personal services, it's any small business that really needs a human touch are the ones that are struggling most today. And other folks in the call have mentioned this, it's really a capital question, right? Like, how do these businesses survive through this time where their demand is probably going to be lower as the economy struggles a bit. And unfortunately, unlike some other speakers, I have no capital to offer. I work for a nonprofit, but I do have some ideas that have come out of some of my experience in Oakland and in San Jose as part of their economic recovery councils. So other speakers have mentioned this idea of new revenue sources and thinking about how you can kind of pivot your business. And I'd kind of point to 4 or 5 things. And these are all look to your city for these or look to your local government for these. One is public space availability. That doesn't do a heck of a lot of good on a day like today where it's smoky here in the Bay Area. But we're seeing more and more governments providing low interest loans or grants to put up parklets, to move your restaurant outside, to think about how you can do business outside of your space, whether that's through outdoor markets. So we've seen permitting requirements and insurance requirements go away. And local governments are making that much easier. So again, that's another piece where you can interact with your city to find those resources. 2, close the digital divide has been a big story both in San Jose and in Oakland, and understanding how businesses can move online. The cities do now have programs that allow small business owners to come in and build a website if they didn't have one before. So that's 2. And then 3, something that we've seen very much in Oakland is a buy local campaign. I know San Francisco is doing something similar for its small businesses, and ensuring that, you know, many of us are on Amazon.com every day, and things are being delivered, and maybe that's the safest way to do it. But in order to make sure our small businesses that we love and adore on our main street survive, we need to actually go to them and purchase products from them. So having that campaign and connecting to it, we think is important. And then lastly, in this category, the business-to-business marketplaces are interesting things that Oakland is starting mainly to think about personal protective equipment and how things like hand sanitizer and masks that are manufactured in Oakland can be bought within the city of Oakland to kind of help that small business community, both in terms of their revenue, but also in managing the pandemic. So that's kind of our learnings from the recovery councils. Again, things to help small businesses think about different revenue sources. But I would say the biggest thing that's come out of our work has been this idea of rent relief. And when we go out and we talk to small and medium-sized businesses, even large businesses that are struggling, it's the rent that is the key issue for them. That's really the one major fixed cost that many small businesses have. And if you're looking at renewing a lease and you don't have some flexibility or forgiveness in the payments, you're potentially unlikely to renew for 12 months if you don't believe the economy is going to recover in that amount of time. So we've been working with our commercial landlords that are members of the Bay Area Council. The city of Oakland's been doing this. The city of San Jose has been doing this, and trying to put together basically rent forgiveness programs that allow the rent to be tacked on, say, 2 years from now, If you don't pay today or pay a smaller portion today, when the economy recovers, your rent will be higher, say 24 months from now. So again, that rent piece, we found that to be really important, a really important cause of small business closures in particular. And then something that I work on every day is just getting the economy back. You know, that doesn't necessarily help just small businesses, that'll help all businesses. But we know as the economy recovers, small business should recover as well. So cities are looking at things like childcare and how they can use philanthropic dollars, how they can use CARES Act or HEROES Act money that they've received or money from the state to think about childcare dollars so that people can actually go back to work. And then the other piece in going back to work is transit. We've done a ton of work, and you may have seen some of the local transit operators here announcing kind of a safe rides program or a healthy rides program. We're really trying to get a better handle on what the transit system will look like so that people can, again, move around, spend their money in small businesses and large businesses and really get the economy going. So a couple things just to watch for there, in particular, maybe for your employees and some child care credits or dollars that certain cities may have. And lastly, just to wrap up, you know, cash is king here. You know, I think capital is the most important piece. All the speakers have mentioned that, access to capital being most important. And I think when we talk about Black and Latinx-owned businesses, that access to capital from traditional sources hasn't matched or hasn't been what it's needed to be to really support those businesses, not just in this crisis, but over many decades. So the Bay Area Council, we've been talking about a couple ideas, and because we have the treasurer here, I have to make my pitch for an economic recovery bond. You know, I think a lot of localities and even the states talking about raising taxes. You know, I think if we wait for the federal government, there may not be that Paycheck Protection Program Part 2. And while the state can't print its own money, the state does have a borrowing capacity. And we think that if we were to go down this road, there are a couple things that could really kind of fix that financial gap that many of the speakers have talked about. One, it's capitalizing CDFIs. We have these institutions that are meant to serve low-income communities and serve communities that aren't served by the traditional financial market. So inserting capital there and focusing their lending efforts on those Black or Latinx-owned businesses is one. I know it's mentioned in the chat that the state's iBank does have a small business program. We think that could be made much bigger, and the state could create its own small business lending facility if we don't see that Paycheck Protection Program Part 2. And then lastly, at the city level, and this is something that, you know, I would encourage you to look at depending on what city you're in. The larger cities, San Francisco and Oakland in particular, have already announced funds that are particular to Black-owned businesses. I'm not sure how much that word is really out there and how much we've spread that word in those cities, but there are philanthropic dollars. There are grants that cities have received to create certain grant funds. So I would just encourage all small businesses to look for those in their city. And then as my last plug, we've been doing similar webinars to this one. We've been collecting information from around the region, both to track the economic recovery, but also to provide resources for large and small businesses. So I would just point participants to bayareacouncil.org to find resources there.
Jeff, thank you. Thank you for all of that information and level setting for us what's going on right here in the Bay Area. All of the speakers, wow, just wow. There is so many resources out there to assist small business. And, you know, Angel said it a little bit earlier that a lot of times people, small businesses, you're so busy with your business and you hear about something, you say, oh, that doesn't apply to me. I'm not going to inquire about that, or maybe don't even really know that it's there. So please, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I mean, we've heard that old saying for a long time, but doesn't cost you anything to inquire, to plug in with a resource. And oftentimes you may find, hey, it's not this one, but let me point you in this direction towards another one. One thing I just wanted to touch on before we get to our Q&A session is just a general question for anybody on the panel. And that is, Jeff touched upon it a little bit. Wall Street's doing all right. A lot of big businesses are doing all right. Apple just passed $2 trillion in value. Amazon's sales have gone through the roof. They're heading towards $2 trillion. Clorox has had their best quarters ever. Of course, they offer a lot of products that are particularly needed right now. But how can small businesses, minority businesses, plug into to do more business with larger corporations or to do more business with the state? I believe that the state does over $10 billion in business a year with small businesses. How can they at this particular time access more of that? How can they access more with a big business that may make the difference between them staying in business or going out of business? Anyone?
So Robert, I'll just jump in quickly. Number one, joining organizations like Nfib or the various minority chambers of commerce is a definite important tool for folks to get together and basically be able to lobby more collectively as a group. But right now, it's important that you also reach out with your elected officials. The legislature is right now going through their last week for budget trailer bills, as well as legislation. If there are things that are important to you, you hear about that they're talking about, contemplating, please reach out to your assembly members and your senators, as well as the governor's office. And even at the federal level, as Julie said, the HEROES Act passed the House, the infrastructure bill also passed the House, but it is stuck in the US Senate right now. So they need to hear from you, your US senators and your House of Representative members. The more that we voice our priorities, get those to the top of the list, like you said, Robert, the squeaky wheel does get the grease in government, but we can't read your mind, right? We need to hear from you. Email, social media, work through your associations, and also be a voice for yourself. When you see people in your neighborhood, right, tell them how hard it is, right? And so right now is the time to continue to advocating, especially at the federal level, where the state of California, we reported a $54 billion deficit this past fiscal year. We are depending on about $14 billion from the federal government to make sure that we balance. Otherwise, there are going to be more cuts and furloughs. So now is the time.
Thank you.
Hey, Robert, Julie. You've touched on a topic that has actually been front of mind for me for last couple of years, actually, especially as I'm talking to local governments and everyone's like, how do I find small businesses that I can use to source some of my products and services? Likewise, with a lot of these corporate giants, and a lot of them do a lot of prime contracting with the government, but making sure that they have really robust supplier diversity programs, and where do they find the people that they can reach out to. And for federal government, we have lots of different certification programs and lots of other resources, namely like our 8A program, which is for socially and economically disadvantaged business owners. One of my plugs is like trying to create some pipelines and share information between all of our resources, federal, state, local, and private sector. If you have a business that's capable and performing well for the federal government, there is no reason why they can't perform well for one of the large corporate entities out there. Likewise, city government has a great resource that's looking for more opportunities, small business. If they've been performing well for that city, they probably can perform for the federal government and for a corporation pretty well as well. But it's putting those pipelines together and making sure that we have that flow of information so that we can create as many opportunities for our small business community as possible. So it's something I've been wanting to try to work on. COVID kind of thwarted some of my efforts this year, but hopefully moving into for the federal government new fiscal year starting October 1, that we can kind of have a resurgence and continue some of those conversations so we can create more opportunities.
Thank you.
Robert, this is John Kavatech. I'll just add a real quick thing. Great question, by the way. I think in terms of allowing more pathways for small businesses to the public sector opportunities, I think the Department of General Services does a terrific job They're always looking for good people to be part of their small business advisory council, or at least come to those meetings, which I think are quarterly. We're at the table, the California Small Business Association, Hispanic chambers, Black chambers, but a lot of discussion there about the processes and ways. And also, I know we, as Fiona knows, we collectively have worked together as a small business community and with others in the Capitol to make sure that there's more bidding opportunities and there's parity and fairness to the minority-owned businesses and small businesses when it comes to the bidding process. So we always make that a continued effort. It has improved over the years. But I also know, to the governor's credit, he has been very focused on, we've been talking to his staff about more shovel-ready projects, more infrastructure projects, more opportunities for people. And with that comes bidding opportunities for small businesses in this crisis. So I think the Department of General Services, GSA, General Services, they do a great job. Get on those lists, but also get involved. And then real quickly on the private sector front, I think I appreciate Treasurer Ma's comments about Nfib, but find that group and find the group that we'd love to have you be a part of our organization, but find the groups that matter the most to you, get involved. It's the best way to network with other people. And then I also think one of the things, hopefully not picking a radioactive issue here, but I know that AB5 is an issue that both Democrats, Republicans, even the governor this past week realized needs to be fixed to make it work better for entrepreneurs and small businesses. So while perhaps well-intentioned to better clarify the definition of an employee or independent contractor, unintended consequences in this crisis. And so we're making sure, and we're heartened to know the governor has talked about the possibility of ways to fix it, to make it work better so that we're not creating roadblocks, but we're creating pathways for small businesses and entrepreneurs to have those pathways to business and opportunities and networking. So thank you.
Hey Robert, this is Angel. I just wanted to highlight, I included a quick link on the chat box to our sister organization, that is the NorCal Ppp. They provide one-on-one support, so any business who may be interested in the certifications that Julie mentioned earlier, or any potential contract that may be available to small businesses. So anyone interested, again, Ppp is norcalptech.org. I listed the link in the chat box. There's no cost for these services, and they can help you become certified and access some kind of government contracting opportunities.
Thanks, Angel. And again, panelists, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're gonna move into some Q&A from our audience. Ton of questions. And Shawit, I'm going to turn this over to you a bit I know you've been doing some curating on the questions to try to group similar ones together, but do you wanna start?
Yes, we have a few questions from the beginning of the conversation, and I know a lot more will be rolling in as we ask them to pause for a moment until the end. So while I scroll to the top, everyone please write your questions. And now we did have questions regarding, let me find this person now. Of course it's gone. Okay, so regarding if someone has borrowed both PPP and EIDL, is the PPP loan forgiveness reduced by the EIDL amount? We have other questions similar to that regarding deductions and things of that nature, which I believe someone did touch on. So if we can get a little bit more information on that.
Sure. If a borrower has both a PPP and the EIDL loan, which is allowable, and they're applying for PPP forgiveness, if they got the EIDL advance, now not the EIDL loan, but the EIDL advance, which was that up to $10,000, that was a forgivable loan, essentially a grant, that EIDL advance amount will be deducted from the PPP forgiveness amount. But the EIDL loan stays as an independent loan and does not have an impact on the PPP forgiveness, just the EIDL advance.
Okay, and forgive me if, as I'm not into SBA as much, but in addition to that, is EIDL forgiveness taxable income?
The EIDL advance, I would encourage everybody, at least from the federal side, I can't speak to the state, maybe Fiona can speak to that side, but from the federal side, there is an IRS notice, at least one, there might be two out now, that speaks to how to treat the idle advance, I believe, and the PPP forgiveness portion for tax purposes. I know for the PPP one for sure that it basically says that the forgiveness portion is not considered income, but it also cannot be deducted from your taxes. The idle one, I'd have to double check and refresh if the idle advance, I believe because it all stems from the CARES Act and all this legislation is ultimately tied back to the CARES Act, that would also not be considered income. But I do want to double check the IRS notice on the idle advance side.
Okay, thank you so much, Julie.
Yeah, and I put the link to the IRS notice in the chat also. So.
All right, we have another question from M. Matthews. What funding options are open for MBEs with fair or compromised credit, or if there is a difference?
You want to, Angel, you want to start?
Yeah, so I can jump in here. So, so I think the first piece of advice is to connect with your local SBDC. They can assign you an access to capital advisor to help identify all of your opportunities based on your specific business, your industry, your cash flow, your history, your business loan needs. And essentially what they do, they'll conduct an assessment, and based on that assessment, they'll help indicate specifically what kind of programs may be available to you. Now, very, very broadly, you know, there are several, you know, programs available, which we've touched on the, you know, some of the emergency loan programs, but of course, there's still the ongoing 7A loans, the micro loans, the community advantage loans. All of these offer very competitive rates. And then beyond that, there may be special programs within your specific city or region. So I think it's going to be contingent on what your specific business is and what your needs are. So my advice is connect with your access to capital advisor, be it SBDC or any other technical assistance provider in your region, and they can help you navigate that entire process. And I might just also mention that ultimately our goal as advisors is not to position the business in a worser situation. So we are not going to recommend any specific type of loan that might ultimately end up endangering your business. So we, as Robert mentioned earlier, there is no fees for our services, and we do not charge a commission. So ultimately, we are in alignment in our. It is the business's well-being that is what we're ultimately striving for.
So, Robert, can I just add that we talked a little bit about the iBank program, and the iBank program has a loan guarantee program. So they guarantee to financial institutions if they are making riskier loans, that they will be the backstop. And then my organization, we have the CalCap for small business loans, and we are a loan loss reserve fund. So we are actually the lenders, or we support the lenders of last resort. So those people who have, you know, bad credit, no credit, hard to access credit, please also log on to my website and Google CalCap for small business, and you can contact one of the participating lenders. And then the CDFIs are also an important resource for you know, harder to lend communities, and they do a lot of you know, education, technical assistance, but also do a lot of lending to those that have harder you know, credit. Harder to access folks who don't have a good credit or bad credit or no credit.
Those are all excellent suggestions, and you may also want to, you know, think about peer-to-peer lending. Crowdfunding may be an option, and if you're not sure about your credit, there's a couple of resources that I would point you to. One is called nav.com, N as in Nancy, A as in Albert, V as in Victor.com, which can give you a free credit score on your business, what your business looks like. And then certainly there's a myriad of other credit services out there, Credit Karma. which can give you a free, again, look at what your credit score is for your personal credit. And you can look at that as many times as you want to, and then begin to take some steps to say, geez, I got to fix this, or this is incorrect information that may be in my credit profile.
All right, thank you, Robert. I think we're going to go with 2 more questions before our closing remarks. We have one from Tony. What does the SBA recommend to small businesses trying to ramp up business to show that they have an adequate track record and prospective revenue to be able to accelerate scaled growth? I can repeat it. So any recommendations from SBA or whomever regarding how a business can show that they are ramping up during these times? I'm assuming in order to access more resources.
Well, I'll take a shot and then let perhaps Julie respond. The SBA is not a direct lender. So generally you're going to be working with a bank. Your local bank, someone you know, and one of the things, the banks are cash flow lenders, so you will have to show what's your historical look, what do you look like historically, and then you're going to be asked to provide some projections, 1, 2, 3 years of projections about your business, where your business is going. In those projections, you really have to get very granular and very explain exactly what all your assumptions are, why you feel you're going to go from here to there, what's behind that, what are the assumptions, how are you going to do that, what are the resources, and does it make sense? Bankers are going to listen to you and understand that, whether it's a bank, whether it's a CDFI, but that's the basic thing. You got your historical numbers and you got your projections. Do those projections make sense? And do those projections make sense that you're going to have the funds to be able to pay back the debt that you may want to access? Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Robert. Yes, sorry, regarding responses. Okay. We have another question. Let's say someone started their business late last year. While they did have revenue, they did not qualify for PPP loan because they'd not yet quote unquote net profit. Are there any resources available for that type of business owner?
If the business owner is looking for COVID-19 related funding, the EIDL program, that Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, is probably a better fit, especially for newer businesses who may only have the owner as an employee, or may have not shown the right finances on their books just yet. The EIDL program can be used for any business expenses, to cover any expenses. That includes payroll, but it also includes everything else that you have to cover, including accounts payable, your rent, your utilities, any ordinary business expense. So I would definitely look at that program. It is still open and accepting applications.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, I think we're good to go. If there are any more questions, I'm going to put an email in the chat, and you'll be able to ask whatever you'd like. We'll forward you to whoever's necessary. And Robert, I'll hand it back to you for closing remarks from yourself and others.
Thank you, Shui. And we are recording this event today, and 2, we will capture the chat. So if there's a question we didn't get to, we will most certainly try to respond to that question after the event is closed. As I started the remarks today, 1, Golden Gate University has been around since early 1900s. We've always had a connection with the small business community, always understand that that's the engine of growth, both in San Francisco as well as the United States. And so we want to do more events like this, really to assist you. We want to hear from you. And I just like our Dean of the Graduate School of Business, the Ageno School of Business, Amy McClellan, to talk a little bit about what Golden Gate's doing and how we can assist small businesses.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you for all our panelists for taking the time to come today and sharing such a tremendous wealth of information. I really liked Angel's call to action, and I think everybody on this webinar feels like we want more. And so Golden Gate is really committed to providing more and to raising up the community around us. So there are 3 ways in which we really strive to help the community around us. One is, of course, because we're a university, to provide courses and degrees to help people change career or, you know, boost their career. And we've been doing that, as Robert said, for 120 years. And as Fiona Ma said, we have professionals in the area teaching about how to help you get where you want to be in your career, and with real world advice. And our students leave very prepared for the next step on their career journey. We also, though, have a small business and entrepreneurship program that is free. It's a 10 to 11 week program. We have a couple of groups starting in September. One is geared specifically toward women, one is geared towards minority-owned businesses, and there's a lot of opportunity for anyone who's a small business owner or who would like to be a small business owner to kind of dig deeper into this, to figure out, how do I create value in my business? How do I pivot my business? How do I make it so that I can ensure my success moving forward? None of us gets to where we are without a team of advisors and mentors, and people with more experience than us, or people with a different perspective. And so this program provides you with a team of advisors that will help you maneuver through rethinking your business. And there's also, it's led by Robert, and we will bring in all of these wonderful resources that you heard about today and really help you think about how you can engage with what's available to you and how you can kind of move into the next place in your business, so that you're not one of those 1 in 5 businesses that thinks they're going to fail in the next 6 months. So we're committed to that. After this webinar, you will get a link to our recording, to some resources that are available, and to an application for the free entrepreneurship program. And then the third way is, we are, because of COVID and because of the pandemic and because so many businesses around us are struggling, we've decided to open a business in transition center. And it's really a place to give, you know, where the entrepreneurship program will be housed, but also a website with resources for you so that you can kind of self-direct. You know, how do I improve my IT? How do I rethink my supply chain? What are things that are going to help me kind of keep fresh in my business and connect with other business owners? So we will have links to all the small business association programs and websites that are out there to help you, but we will also have our own homegrown HR, supply chain, mentoring kind of information on that, in that center. And so we are really committed to helping kind of lift up the community around us and engaging. And so we're so glad that you were able to begin that process with us by attending today. As I said, you will receive probably a couple of emails from us, one with the entrepreneurship program application, with the link to this recording and all of the information from the chat, and all the links to what people have mentioned here today. And then as our website launches, we'll also probably send you an email to let you know that that's happened and that you can go ahead for free and access whatever resources we've put up there. So thank you so much for engaging with us today, and look for more from us from Golden Gate. And thank you to our wonderful panelists who brought a wealth of information to us. It was a really well spent hour and a half. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Amy. And just to echo Amy's words, Honorable Fiona Ma, Julie Close, Angel Cardoz, Jeff Belisario, and John Kavatech, thank you, thank you, thank you. The information you provided today, very informative and very valuable for our small business community. I want to thank everybody on the line today that joined us today. And then I just want to thank a few people to give. Thank you, Sue-Ann Hirschberg. Thank you, Shweet Johannes. Thank you, Irene Rinaldi. Thank you, Damon Conklin. Individuals behind the scenes that help bring this event together. So I thank you for all the work that you've done. And we look forward to doing many more of these events. So stay tuned. We will be in touch with you about more webinars and different programs that we're doing. Everyone have a great day. And I look forward to the day that I don't see you on a screen and I see you in person. So take care, stay well.